Yeah.
And I want to say this because y'all are great friends of mine, and um, I do want to say this about Chuck. Chuck and I have been in some places. We've been friends for a long time now. Chuck has never lied to me. Chuck has never led me astray. Chuck has never given me any reason to doubt the authenticity of what he's telling me.
Hmm.
When he tells me something, I believe it. He has no reason to lie. So the reason I bring that up
Yeah.
is because the casino experience encounter was brought into question by some certain individuals, or one individual in particular. And when I'd first heard it, I was like, "What? Are you serious?" But there's two eyewitnesses there, and probably more that we don't know about, that won't talk about it.
Hmm.
So I just want to say that Chuck is a man of his word. If he says something, then that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And so that I just wanted to interject that because because he doesn't think that he needs to take up for himself or anything, but to people that would doubt what he has to say, I just want them to know this guy is solid. He's 100%. He's not going to lie to you. Whatever he sees, whatever he experiences, if he tells you, it's the truth.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. We back up each other as to what we both saw, and it was there, and I wouldn't have kept talking about, why doesn't security, share the video, if it wasn't true, I wouldn't have kept saying that, because
Well, we know, Mary, that because Chuck and we've experienced that they probably will never share that with
no.
anyone.
And yeah. That's
You know,
understandable. Understandable.
I I uh I appreciate that, LJ. I don't know why people got to act the way they do and do the things they do.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I do want to say this, and I'm not going to say this to call somebody out, but I have been with probably one of the best researchers in the world when it comes to Bigfoot. I respect him and I love him like a brother. I've been hurt, but I'm not finished. I got things I want to prove to myself. I got things that I want to prove to other people, which I really don't have to
Hmm.
because I know these things are real. I've seen them. I've heard them. I've casted their tracks. I've even got hair samples of these things. I don't have to prove it to anybody. I don't want to prove it to anybody. All I want to do is tell the truth. And that's all I've ever done and everything I've ever done. My grandfather taught me when I was a young kid to live by three principles. And the three principles are integrity, honesty, and respect. And
Hmm.
all my life, that's what I've tried to live by.
Yeah.
The Bigfoot world is a crazy world. People have egos. I think that's pretty sad in the Bigfoot community because we're never going to get anywhere if all we do is argue and all we do is say, well, I'm right, you're wrong, this happened, this didn't happen. We're never going to get to the point where we're going to solve anything if people don't work together.
I
And
agree.
that's the problem I
Absolutely.
see. That's
Yeah.
what I see wrong in the Bigfoot community. I mean, to be honest, there are so many researchers all across this country who have piles and piles of evidence that these things exist.
Hmm.
In a court of law, in a court of law, if you was prosecuting a criminal case and you poured all that evidence that everybody has on the table and worked together, it'd be a slam dunk case.
Absolutely.
That just upsets me more than anything else.
Yeah, that was, one of the reasons why I formed my group was, whenever I was, searching for someone to, help me, answer my questions, I ran into one of the large, well known groups here in Pennsylvania, and they were pretty well connected with the larger not finding Bigfoot people. They ignored me, ignored my questions as if I was nothing. And I vowed I'm not going to do that to anyone else. I'm not going to let that happen. This information, whenever I learn it, I'm going to share what I know, because this hiding and hoarding of information, of knowledge and evidence, it's wrong. And so I formed a connection with a number of different organizations. All of us feel the same way, that the information should not be hoarded. Let's share freely among each other. We will protect our areas, so that no one comes in and contaminates and destroys evidence, but the knowledge itself should be shared.
That's one reason we are friends with you. Other than there's more reasons than that, but Chuck and I both are of the like mind. We formed this channel together for that purpose. We shouldn't be hiding or concealing knowledge. Like you just said, we need to preserve some areas. Yes, we understand that. But there's no room for ego. There's no room for I'm better than you and I know more than you. I've heard people make comments, well, why are you listening to him? I know much more than he does. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you hear these comments and you laugh to yourself and you're like, really?
Yeah. The ego is really something else in this community.
It is. It really is. And that's one reason why we have connected with you and your group, is because we're not about ourselves. We're for the betterment of everyone else. And we want to share what we've learned. And that's why we talk about some of the things and disclose some things, that we've, let me give you a quick example. We have found in our area that when you find rock stacks, they're typically identifying a trail.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't hear that from other people. They don't give you that information. Another piece of information I'm going to give is that I'm a seasoned tracker. I'm very good at what I do. And I can distinctly tell the difference between a game trail versus a Sasquatch trail. And this is why. This is how I tell the difference. The Sasquatch trail is wider and deeper into the ground. It may be a few inches wider, but it's always deeper into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And it's information like this that would be so beneficial for people starting out and investigating their area.
And I can add to that knowledge about the Bigfoot trail, is that it usually parallels a game trail.
Yes, absolutely.
Um,
And I'll throw out one more bit of information I've learned from observation. You all are familiar with the disturbances in the ground that a armadillo creates, correct? There are little holes in the ground.
Well, you have armadillos, we have groundhogs.
Okay. Well, for us, they're armadillos. They poke their nose in the ground and they root in the ground. Well, you find that a lot around here. Sometimes it doesn't look exactly right, and you don't know what you're looking at. And a lot of times, these particular creatures, they will walk around with their knuckles. They'll walk around on two knuckles and their toes. And that will almost mimic an armadillo root. So you got to watch for that. Go ahead, Chuck.
Do y'all remember the sandbar that we found at Lake of the Arbuckles?
Yes.
And we actually found knuckle tracks on the sandbar. Do y'all remember that? We took pictures.
Yeah. Yep.
So they don't always walk on two legs. They go on fours as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
call that what? The spider crawl? Is that what we coined that as?
Yeah, I
I've
think
heard
so.
that.
One other thing I wanted to ask you, Mary, have you ever heard in the woods while you're out, have you ever heard what sounds like, the best way I can describe it is something taking their tongue and popping the roof of their mouth. Have you ever heard anything like that while you're out in the woods?
No, not personally, but I've heard other people talking about it.
Okay.
Yeah, bears. Yeah,
Well-
black bears. They'll click their teeth, but the popping, no, not that I
Okay.
can recall.
The reason I brought this up is I got a good friend that lives in Canada, and she informed me that she has heard the same sounds in certain parts that she researches in. We actually added a new member to our team. We haven't actually been on a hunt with her yet, but she is dying to go. She has a degree in anthropology and she has a degree in archaeology. This lady is sharp as a tack. And her and I got to talking about this this tongue clapping that we hear occasionally. And she brought up a point, and I don't think this has ever been brought up, but I know that she talked to a specific member of the Not Finding Bigfoot group, told him of her hypothesis on this tongue popping that
Right.
I've heard it. I've actually got it on recorder. It was actually done to me and another one of my research buddies while we were hiking through the woods. We started hearing this, and the woods were so thick you couldn't hardly see in front of you. We started hearing that, and so we mimicked it and did the tongue popping back at it. Well, as soon as we did that, they responded. Well, this lady, this new team member we have, her and I were talking one night about this. And LJ, I don't even think I even said anything about this to you. My mind has been so jumbled here lately. I just forgot to tell you. But she told me that there's an ancient language.
Yes.
And it's called the Sand Bushman of the Callahan.
At the Kalahari, yeah.
It is what it's called. And she says that the way they communicated with one another was by popping their tongues on the roof of their mouth, and there was pauses in between. Sometimes it was a little faster, but it was a type of communication that these Bushmen used. And when she told me that, I thought, holy cow, we're missing out on something. Nope. When she told the person that she talked to what she had discovered, they dismissed her. And we talked about egos and people having those type of attitudes when it comes to Bigfoot. He just brushed her off. Didn't even consider it. And I'm thinking to myself, why would somebody dismiss that when there's a possibility that there might be a connection there? And
because he's not interested in knowing, I think.
That kind of stuff just irritates me to no end.
Yeah.
Because here we are as researchers and investigators. We go out, we look for specific things, we find specific things, and every time we do, we throw it out there on the table.
Right. Something else. Go ahead. No, I was just going to say,
the more researchers who throw this out on the table about what they find and what they learn and the possibilities of learning more, the more that gets thrown out there on the table, the more and more proof that we're going to be able to give to people that these things are real.
Exactly. And they're a lot more ancient and possibly have a language. In fact, we know they have a language. It's just deciphering it. But then the stick structures, the tree structures, that's part of the language also. It's all communication. But I've been studying the stick structures that are placed on the ground and the shapes of them. And I had remembered a book on Chinese language, that I'd picked up, and I was comparing the written language along with some of these glyphs. I'll call them the sticks laid on the ground, that they look similar to, and I'm not saying that they're writing in Chinese, but the ancient Chinese language, it's based for a simple people to understand. It's very basic, the shapes. Um, it's very basic that just about anybody can decipher it, no matter what. And I thought, boy, this looks like, one shape looks like man, another shape big man, another shape trees, and it's
Chuck and I are recently on our last expedition. We don't normally find glyphs here in eastern Oklahoma or where we research, but we did find some this time. And what they were, I'll describe them. Everyone's familiar with the anarchist A. And if you can take that A with the extended centerpiece and put a rocker, like a rocking chair, under it, we found that multiple times, and we're baffled by that. We don't know what that means. And when you first approach something like that, you're thinking, it's some sticks that fell off a tree, but when you start encountering that multiple times, and you see that the sticks are not just dropped in there, they're actually placed because they're intrinsic in the way that they're laid in there. One is on top of the other, one is under the other, and it just doesn't fall like that. And when you start seeing that again and again, it's baffling to me. You talk about this ancient language, and to me, I think of cuneiform and Sumerian languages, and I'm fascinated by languages. I've studied languages for a long time in my life. I speak multiple languages, and to even think that there's an entity out there other than human beings that has a grasp on an ancient language, to me, is absolutely fascinating. So
yes, yeah, that shape that you're describing. I'll send you a picture of a Chinese word that could possibly be, from going by your description, and I'm thinking it could mean man or big man.
Oh wow!
But I'll send you a photo.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. That would
Chuck,
be awesome.
yeah, Chuck, you took a picture of that, and I need to start I need to discipline myself, because I usually just have my video camera and I take videos of things. I need to snap still pictures that I can send to people.
Yeah.
Chuck, I believe you snapped a picture of that glyph. Did you? The very pronounced one that we found?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did take, I think I took 2 pictures of it, and I could actually send that to Mary and have her look at it and can do some comparison
Yeah,
on,
I want you
on
to do
what we
that.
found.
Sure, that'd be great.
I can do that.
Well, Mary,
I can do that.
I've got a few questions here I want to ask you real quick, if you don't mind. First of all, Chuck and I, we have sat around the campfire many nights, and we've discussed this topic. And when you answer this question, then I'll give you our conclusion of it. But the question is, have you ever felt threatened by any of your encounters?
No, I may be stupid, but no, I wouldn't. I don't think so. Everything that I've read, including hearing those growls, close to the truck, while I was sitting in there, I didn't take them as being threatening. Just more of a, you're intruders, get out of here. Getting rocks thrown at me. Just warning, just move along. I've never really felt threatened, and I'm not saying that they can't be. It's just the particular ones that I've run into at that moment in time were not threatening. They were going about their own business, doing their own thing. On the most part, juveniles. In fact, I have been bluff charged by one, but it was more a matter of we were interrupting a hunt. They just wanted us gone.
No, that's
But
and like I
uh,
had previously said, Chuck and I both would answer that question exactly the way you have. And we've had multiple encounters over the years, and we're not speaking a year or two of it. You know, we've got multiple years between the three of us of experience, and
we,
we've never been physically threatened because we've never physically tried to threaten any of the beings we've been around. And
correct. And I think that comes from a matter of respect on our part, for them, for their territory, because that's the way that I approach it. I'm going into their territory, and if I'm not wanted, let me know. I'll move along. I'll go away.
yeah, absolutely. And we're the three of us are of a kindred mind when it comes to that because we go into these areas with utmost respect, and
Mm-hmm.
we're not. I'm a hunter, yes, but I hunt. First of all, I hunt for knowledge. Secondly, if my family is in need of food, I will hunt for food, but I don't take pleasure in killing things. And I
Mm-hmm.
certainly don't want to kill one of these things because to me they
No.
are. I don't know their origins. I don't know where they came from. I have my
Yeah.
hypothesis, but I have no way of
Right.
proving them. And I'm not going to try to hunt one of these things down and shoot it just to prove to the world they exist. I could care less what the world thinks, to be honest.
Yeah. Right.
So that's my way of thinking on that, and it's our way of thinking. I believe I can say that where we are completely against killing one of these things
Yes.
just to prove to the world they exist.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm a no kill. In fact, I have over 7,000 members in my group. It's a Facebook group, and I've got there's a lot of skeptics in there and non-believers, and I welcome the skeptics. I tell them, please, you're welcome to question. Please question. That keeps us, on the straight and narrow, for one thing. Because we all have to maintain, a bit of skepticism in what we do. Always question. But then, there's a lot of people, that'll come in the group and they will demand proof. They will say, well, you're saying all this stuff, where's the proof? Where's photos? Where's the body? Where's your photos? And and,
I think
and
I,
I tell
I
them
think I
straight out,
respond. I think I
yeah,
responded to one of your members who was wanting proof.
yeah, yeah. I tell them straight out. I said, I'm not here to prove a thing. I don't have to prove anything. My job here is to teach you if you want to learn, you know, um, and to help you. Um, I don't have a doggone thing to prove to anybody, and I'm not going to
Right.
attempt because anything that I would say or do or show would not convince anyone. So I pretty don't care about proving anything.
You know, I worked with a guy one time, and he said, "I want to see some pictures of this Sasquatch, this Bigfoot that you're hunting and all that." I showed him footprints and some other things that I had. And he was
Hmm.
like, "Well, how do I know it wasn't a big human out there?" It's like, really, dude? Like they're gonna follow me out in these areas, and yeah, that's absurd. First of all, but
Yeah.
then I would show him pictures of faces and these things looking out behind trees and stuff, and and
Hmm.
in his mind, he's wanting this in a photo studio, posing with his kids or something,
Right.
photograph. And I'm like, dude, you're not going to get those. You're going to get some good photos, but, a lot of what you get, we term the blob squatch, but.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Mary, I'll tell you a funny story real quick. Up in northwest Oklahoma, we got an area that's pretty hotbed of activity. I had a guy that I worked with, and he told me, he said, I want to go out with you, and I want you to show me some of the proof. So I got one of my other research buddies that is ex-Marine. Well, there's no such thing as an ex-Marine. So anyway, me and him. Oh, I know. I'm going to hear about that. I took him out and with this other research buddy of mine, and we were going through the woods. And this is an area where we've found structures there, quite a few structures actually, and some of them were pretty impressive. Every time we would come to a wood structure, he'd look it over, and he'd say to me, "Man, that's flood damage." And I turned around and looked at him. I said, "Dude, there hadn't been a flood here in over 100 years. What are you talking about?" And he'd just blow it off. Well, as we're walking down this trail, I'm in the lead. He's right behind me. And then my research partner is behind him. And we're walking down these trails. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this horse apple, or what's called Osage orange, from an Osage orange tree.
Mm-hmm.
It's a seed pod, and it's lime green. They're usually about the size of a baseball or softball, and they're real rough. They have all these little edges in them and everything else. Well, this horse apple comes flying through the air over our heads, hits this tree in front of me, and rose to my feet. And I reached down, I picked it up, turned it over, and there's a great big huge bite mark taken out of this horse apple. I turned around to him, handed him the horse apple. He looks at it, and the first thing that comes out of his mouth is, "I can't explain that." Now, did he become a believer? Probably not. But he experienced something in the woods that we knew he would have questions about. And in his mind, he questions what he saw that day.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, that was like 2 years ago. And to this day, we bring up a conversation about that event. And he says, "I can't explain it. I experienced it. I saw it. I saw it fly through the air. I saw it hit the tree in front of you. And I saw you pick it up and turn it over and saw the bite mark out of it. I cannot explain that."
Mm-hmm. The seed is
So,
planted. Now, I saw you writing something about that on Facebook, and did you see my comment about what those Osage oranges or say whatever what they're called around here? We know them as monkey balls. Yeah, around here they're known as monkey balls.
well, Mary, growing up, I remember my grandparents and my parents telling me, "Don't touch those."
Mm-hmm.
They always told me they were poisonous. Don't touch them. Don't lick them. Don't bite out of them. Just leave them alone. And yet, my grandparents and my parents would take those horse apples and put them in their closets
Mm-hmm.
to keep the moths away and other insects and the spiders away.
Right. That's what they're good for. Yeah.
And when I saw the bite mark taken out of one, the first thing that came to my mind was they're using these as an insect repellent.
It's very
I don't
possible.
Didn't know if I'm on something but that's the only thing I could think of.
We have found that in other places too, Chuck, if you'll remember. We have come across that more than once.
Yeah.
Matter of fact,
big bite marks taken out.
we found one that had the imprints of the front 4 teeth, the top 4 teeth, out of one of these beans in it. It was like it drug its teeth across the body of the horse apple and left the imprint. It was quite amazing. And I think
But
you
I-
may
those
be
things
on
are
to
pretty
something.
hard too.
I think that's what they're doing. I think they're using it as an insect repellent.
It's very possible because you don't want to eat one of these things.
No, no. Maybe he took a bite out of it just to get to the insides of it and use it to rub on his body or hair or something to keep bugs away. Who knows?
Yeah, it's very possible.
all I
That's
know
my
is
thought.
they're pretty hard.
Well, and also if you ingest enough of this stuff, that toxin or whatever that's in it that repels those insects is going
Yeah.
to emit through your skin. So,
True, yeah. Yeah, you gain a certain resistance to it.
yeah. And the reason I say
And you
that
touch it.
is because my experience from around the world being in the military, there's tribes in the Amazon jungle that they eat a particular fruit that grows down there, a particular plant, I should say, and it acts as a natural bug repellent, mosquito repellent in particular, to those people down there, the indigenous people. And that is a part of their natural diet. And by eating that, they just don't. And if you've ever been in the Amazon down in that part of the country, the mosquitoes will. Oh, you can't imagine how bad they are. I mean, even in Alaska and in places around here, no, times that by 10. They are horrible down there. But these people ingest this stuff in their diet, and they're not bothered by them. So that got me thinking that, hey, maybe they're doing the same thing. But I'm not going to go out and eat a horse owl just to keep mosquitoes off of me. But.
No.
All right, let me move on to another question here. We had talked about this earlier, or you had brought this up early on. What are your thoughts or your interpretation on these beings following people home? Now, let me clarify that question a little more. I have heard that if you spend enough time doing this, they will eventually start following you home. I have not had that experience myself. I've been doing it for a long time. That doesn't hold true with me, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's happened to me, and it was not pleasant. In fact, you had asked me earlier if I'd ever had a frightening experience or anything like that with them, and I'd completely forgotten about this one night. But early on, whenever I was still learning about them, at the time we did not have cable TV, and someone told me about this Not Finding Bigfoot TV show. Whenever we did get satellite TV, I put that show on and started watching it, and I thought, oh, that's cool. They bang sticks against trees and they hoop and they holler and do these howls. Said, oh, I'll try that. So I went up on the hill behind my home. There was a road that went back up over into their territory where they came from. I went up there and leaned out the window and did a couple hoops. Didn't hear anything. I said, oh, okay, well, whatever. And I drove home. Well, later that night, around 2 o'clock in the morning, something came around, multiple somethings came around the house, started beating on the walls. And then a smaller something jumped up on the roof. We lived in it was a low ranch home. It was a low roof, so just about anything that was able to leap would be able to get up on there. But I could hear it running back and forth across the roof. It had, of course, have been a smaller one. Otherwise, it would have crashed through. But it woke me up. And my husband is a very deep sleeper, and I have a heck of a time waking him up, and he would not wake up. and I'm scared to death. These things are beating the walls all over the house. And finally, I got him woken up, and by then, this lasted for about 20 minutes. And whenever I got him woken up, it had stopped. So I said, "Go out, check the doors, make sure everything's locked up and everything." And I don't think he even remembers it because he was half asleep doing it. But yeah, that was really the only night, the only time that I was ever frightened by them. But apparently, by my going up there into their area and doing these hoops, I crossed the line somehow, some way, and they came down and did that. And that was the only time that that happened to that degree. But yeah, that was not pleasant.
What's the local tribes, Indian tribes around that you grew up around?
Uh, the Seneca, the Seneca Nation. There's a reservation north of here.
Okay. Now, from being down here in Oklahoma that we're, well, just from the history of Oklahoma, just how much immersed in Indian culture we are. Because
Right.
let's face it, most native Oklahomans are Indian. You know,
Yes.
I'm Cherokee, Chuck. I know you're Indian, and we call it Indian. We're not concerned about politically correct. We grew up with Indian, and we're gonna stick with it. If that offends people, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry. Just move on. We're not doing it to offend anyone. That's who we
Right.
are. So, but anyway, just like Chuck, myself, we've grown up with these Indian lore. We know a lot of the history
Mm-hmm.
because these are our people. We are not
Right.
just Oklahomans, we are Indians as well. Whether we're full blood
Right.
or not, we are still immersed in the tribe, in the history. So, with that being said, do you actually have any views or understanding or knowledge of the local tribe's views on what we would call here in Oklahoma Sasquatch?
They are, yeah, the local tribes know them as Janoskwa or the Stone Man. Yeah, the Seneca Nation is part of the Iroquois nation, and yeah, my dad raised me to um, respect our heritage because I'm also part Native, part Indian. Unfortunately, I don't know which tribe because I haven't been able to trace it. But it's he taught me how to walk in the woods. He taught me, how to be quiet whenever I'm in the woods. He taught me how to whistle. He taught me, a lot of things. In fact, we are connected to the Comanche Nation through Quanah Parker. My
Oh
maiden
wow.
name is my maiden name is Parker. Yeah, his mother is possibly a distant relative, um, of our family that I had traced, whenever they moved out west, that they were part of the family.
Well, and the reason I bring that up, Mary, is because here in Oklahoma, we've got multiple tribes. I'm from the biggest tribe in the United States. I'm Cherokee.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably, I think I figured it up. I'm around 3H Cherokee. I'm quite a bit of Cherokee, but I grew up with the stories of Sasquatch and this and that from the locals and whatnot. My grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
well, my great grandmother, she was a Cherokee medicine woman. She used to tell stories. She died before I was born, but my dad relayed stories. And
Mm-hmm.
now I'll clarify this. Me being native, I'm also German as well, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
a lot of native. But you get this idea that the Indian people are more connected and more spiritual to the earth and all this stuff. And I'm just going to say from my personal experience, that's just a bunch of hogwash. It's not true. The Indians,
Yeah.
they lived in the woods. They know these woods. Yes, absolutely. But is there anything special that sets them apart from anyone else who grew up in the woods? No, there's not.
I agree.
Yeah, they're not more animal kindred or anything like that. Because I've seen that with my own eyes. It's not true. Now, I will say that as a young boy, I grew up learning the ways of hunting that the Cherokee had developed over the years. And they developed them not because they're special, but that was their environment. And that was passed down to me. That's why I'm a good tracker. And of course, I've continued to do that and developed the skill as my own personal. I've taken it as my own personal skill and developed it. But I hear that a lot. That they talk about, and I seen a post on Facebook one time. It talked about the original founding fathers, and it had like 4 chiefs of different tribes. And I'm like, okay, well, what did they found? I'm like, I just want to say from a Native American perspective, there is nothing special about the Indian people other than the fact they grew up in the land, and that is why they're more in tune to it. Just like someone from New York would know more about the city than I would.
Yeah.
And that refers back to these Sasquatch. It's not that they are mystical or anything, that they are magical in the woods. That is their home. I know my home better than anyone else. They're going to know their home better than anyone else.
My dad, I spoke about him, but my dad was also a magician. He was a magician, and he taught me some magic that he would, some tricks that he would do. And I would watch him, and we would watch TV, the magicians on TV, and I can always pick apart, how they're doing the trick, and so I kind of have adapted that to the Bigfoot and what they do. And things that people put off as supernatural or portal hopping and little tricks that they do, I'm able to pick apart as misdirection, like a magician does. You watch this hand side, but the right hand is doing something totally different. And that's the right hand that you have to watch. It's the same with Bigfoot. You hear a sound to the left, so you pay attention to what's going on to the right of you, because that's where the real trick is coming from.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then Chuck and I have experienced that. There's a technique that these creatures will do, and we've come to call it shadowing, flanking you, and
right.
Chuck and I have been right in the middle of it before, and we've foiled their attempts to flank us before, and which produced some really dramatic results that we may talk about some other time.
Yeah, we actually flanked them.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
I'm telling you, Mary, they were confused. They didn't know what to do or where to go.
And the thing about it, Mary, we
didn't. Their fun.
Yeah, we didn't intend to do it. It just kind of happened that way. And once we realized what was going on, we took full advantage of it, and we had a good time with it. But it was an amazing experience we had. Well, Chuck, I want to ask you this question. We had talked about earlier on. There's really no good way to detect when these creatures are around you, other than sometimes the woods will go silent, and both of you have experienced this. You know what I'm talking
Hmm.
about. So
Absolutely.
I want to bring this question to you, Chuck, and then to Mary after your response, Chuck, is how many times or what's the most memorable time that you can think of that well particular to this incident, when you and I have been out, Chuck, in some of the areas we've been in, and the woods have been completely silent. And I'm talking in
Hmm.
springtime, in summertime, in wintertime, because you and I have experienced
Yep.
that more than one time. Go ahead and tell me what your thoughts on that.
Well, to tell you the truth, when that kind of stuff happens, it mind boggles me because we know the insects, we know the frogs are in the trees. I mean, we know that stuff is around. But when everything just goes quiet, it is kind of a creepy feeling, but you know that something's up. I remember probably the most memorable time that's ever happened to me was when I went on the very first expedition, which was down in the Sam Houston National Forest. And we were walking, like we talked about earlier tonight, we were walking down a right of way. Starting out on this little hike, we heard the tree frogs, we heard the insects. Uh, you could hear all that stuff. As we got further and further down this right of way, we started hearing wood knocks and we heard a couple whoops. When that happened, I mean, it got pretty much deathly quiet. The only thing that you could hear were the leaves on the trees moving because of the wind. Everything else was gone. Well, I shouldn't say it was gone. It just stopped. It was about that time that I saw the one that was on all fours and he was swaying back and forth like a gorilla. And I know I've told you about that, LJ, and Mary, I've probably told you that story as well. But that is I don't know how they do it. I don't know if the other animals in the woods just respect it or what exactly happens. I even thought at one time that maybe they were pushing out infrasound to stun whatever's out there to get it to keep quiet. I don't know. I really don't know how that happens or what happens. I mean, there's a couple different ways that they could do it. I think whether it be infrasound or whether it's just the animals in the woods just respect them enough to just shut up, let them do their thing. I don't know, but I have experienced that before quite a few times. And LJ, I mean, you and I have heard that several times as well. It's funny when you're in that situation and all of a sudden you'll hear a 600 or 700 pound owl hooting in the tree line, and you know it's not a 700 or 800 pound owl, but everything else in the woods that's there is deathly quiet.
Yeah, no,
Um,
it is unsettling almost when you hear that, because the normal sounds that you're used to hearing, they just stop, and
yep.
you have no explanation for that. Mary, what are your thoughts on that? How much of that have you experienced?
Oh, quite a bit. Whenever I lived at the other place, and that one would come around the house all the time. Sometimes, I would get pre-warning from my dog and her reaction, and other times, um, I would hear the frogs up in the pond, and then I knew, okay, well, he's back. And yeah, that happened just about all the time. And then here at my new place, I've seen one here, and I found their footprints around the foundation while we were building our home. And yeah, I've heard the frogs, the tree frogs. go quiet along the creek, behind the house, you all up and down the valley. You could hear them go quiet further down. You could just about tell the movement, of something moving up the little valley that the creek runs through, by the sound of the frogs. They would go quiet, and then further up go quiet, and then the ones below would start up. Yeah, I've heard the owls, the giant owls, and then the dogs barking from different directions, starting way down in the valley, and you can just trace them, coming up.
All right, Mary, I've got one more question for you. And I'm going to ask you this from a personal experience I had one time. Have you ever heard what sounds like a 400-pound woodpecker out in the woods?
Fortunately, no. I've heard the woodpeckers, quite a few of them, but a huge one, no. I've heard one imitating an owl, but the call was backwards, and then he must have jumped out of a tree or something, because right up on the hill above the house, I saw something fall or jump out of a tree and run away. I don't know what happened, but I guess he got caught napping.
Yeah, and the reason I ask you that, I've asked other guests we've had on. I was out one time and I heard this succession of wood knocking, is the only way I can describe it, that a woodpecker would do. But the decibels that this thing was emitting would have had to have been a massive woodpecker.
Wow.
It was just amazing. I'm the only person I have ever heard or talked to that has had that same encounter was Kumbo Baker, and he coined it as a 400-pound woodpecker. And it's crazy. I've heard that with my own ears, and it's baffling. You're like, what in the heck could make something that loud? And it was phenomenal. So
Yeah, there was one that would, the one come around my other house. One night he came out, must have been mating season, because he came out and he was whooping in reply to a female call. And then he took off down the valley, like not even 5 minutes later, maybe 2 minutes right after he took off. This black car comes pulling into my neighbor's driveway, and this is after midnight, at night. They go pounding on her door. She, of course, didn't answer the door. And then they took off and went in the same direction that the Bigfoot went running. So I'm thinking they had him tagged.
You think it was fed?
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, that's an aspect of this we need to explore one of these days, because we know it exists. We know it's real.
I got to tell about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
LJ, I got stories to tell about that.
Oh yeah, sure do, brother.
Oh yeah, and I've got a lot more about that
All right.
also. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna have to have you back on just to talk about that. So, because we know that goes on. Well, guys, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this show up here. Mary, we've really enjoyed you coming on. We're planning another expedition down here, and we'd love to have you a part of it. If you could ever make it, we can work around any schedule, even just to have you down here, because you left quite an impression on us last time.
Oh.
And we just want to say from our deepest, we really appreciate, you contributing to what we're doing, what you're doing. We're working together, and like-minded people, that's what's going to change this thing. And we're very, very happy that you're a part of that with us.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I'll take you up
Mary,
on that. Yes.
Mary, the one thing I want to say is the best part of our trip on that expedition was the night that you made seafood chowder. And I tell you what, that was the bomb. And I am going to plead with you that the next time you come down here to go on a trip with us, you have to make that again, and we'll buy the supplies if we have to. So,
Well, not only
Absolutely.
that, Mary, we
even
would.
the raccoon flight.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chuck. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But no, and we're not just limited. We want to get up there around your part of the world too. So anything you're planning big coming up, let us know. We'll be more than happy to try to make it up there because we love you guys,
Please come.
and we'd love to get up there in Pennsylvania and
Yeah,
Ohio and
I
that surrounding
plan.
area.
Yeah, I plan outings. That's for at least once a month, and the month of June is just about jam packed. I don't have a free weekend at all in June. it's it's all scheduled. Um, but yeah, please come. And for me to go back down there all in a heartbeat, but not in the heat of the summer.
Yeah, no, our heat down there is quite terrible.
How
So
long? Just out of curiosity, Mary, how long a trip is that from there to here, or vice versa?
Well, if we wouldn't have had to stop for food or potty or anything, it would have only been 18 hours. But
Okay.
it took us 21 hours to drive down there.
yeah, that's not too bad. I've been up to northeastern
No,
Ohio, and it
yeah,
took around close to that. But yeah,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
Mary, do you have
please
any?
come up.
Yeah, no, we'd love to come up and just experience that part of the world as well because we know you guys have probably as much um, encounters and everything up there as we do down here, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just a different part of the world, and we're all about exploring all of our United States. We'd love to get out
Oh,
to
yeah.
Yeah.
Washington, to California one of these days, but we'll see how things go. Down in Florida, even up in Maine, even wherever we can
Yeah.
get, we'd love to go. So
Yeah. As soon as the border opens, I'd love to cross over into Ontario again. I love it. Yeah, I've got friends up there, some fellow Sasquatchers, a group that I'm good friends with.
yeah, that'd be great to get up into
And
Canada and Alaska. I've been
yeah,
in Alaska before, and I wasn't into Sasquatching back then, but man, to know now if I knew then what I
mhm.
know now, yeah, I'd been all over that place. But
Oh goodness, yeah.
well, any final thoughts or anything you want to add to this, Mary?
Other than always be aware, no matter where you are. Always be aware.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's good advice. Chuck, any final thoughts? Any words you want to say of encouragement or anything?
Well, first of all, I think I want to say thank you for all the listeners, and I appreciate you listening to our show. And Mary, it's always an honor and a pleasure. You and Debbie both have a very special place in our hearts. Our trip that we took together, the expedition, that was probably one of my most favorite trips I've taken, other than the trip that took down the southeast Oklahoma together. But it's always an honor to talk to you and a pleasure to talk to you. And we Facebook each other a lot, and that really means a lot to me. And I really appreciate you and what you do, Mary. And like I said, you guys have a special place in my heart, and I'm just happy to get you on the show. So
Well, with that being
Oh,
said,
thank you.
Mary, let me give you an opportunity to tell people out there how they can get a hold of you, your website, any YouTube, any activity you've got going on right now on the internet that people would want to get a hold of you. Go ahead and give that out right now if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. In order to contact me, on the most part, you have to belong to Facebook because that's my primary contact through the group, and that's Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project. And it's a group, just join, come in. Everyone's welcome as long as you're respectful and don't harass anyone. Any questions are welcome. We answer as best as we can, and we plan monthly campouts for that everyone is welcome to. In fact, we've got a pretty good one planned for a bunch, like I said, planned for June, and one in particular to one of my favorite areas in the Allegheny National Forest. Yep, if you guys can make it in June, mid-June, please come up.
I think it'd probably be a lot cooler there in June than it will be down here.
Absolutely.
LJ, we need to think about that.
Well, I want to go ahead and close this down. Chuck, you got any last comments you want to add?
I think I've talked enough tonight, LJ.
All right. Well, guys out there, if you've liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video, and we'll be pumping out more as we go along. And we really want to thank Mary for coming on, and we'll have her back on one of these days, and we can explore some more topics. And one other thing, if you guys have any questions or anything out there that's listening, you're wanting to get into this, you don't know where to start or anything like that, hey, just send us an email. We'll be more than happy to help you guys out. So we've enjoyed you guys. We've enjoyed this time, and thank y'all for listening. Thanks for listening to the show. If you've experienced a cryptid animal in any way and want to tell your story, email us at cryptidsafari@gmail.com. You're welcome to come on to the show or just simply talk to someone who will listen. We're here for you. Remember to be kind to one another, seek the truth in love, and He will make you free. Until next time.